What is your view of Fuentes?
I think, number one, he's a white supremacist, and I think he's an opportunist that has figured out how to make money being a white supremacist.
Your negligence to acknowledge the fact that his fans, his constituents, have been following him for 10 years. You know, this
What's that got to do with his anti-Semitism?
Hitler had followers.
Nick Fuentes is not MAGA. He's MAG-GIT. He trades in being a subhuman, mentally and conspiracy-minded, Neanderthal knuckle-dragger.
He's speaking Generation Z because they feel left out. Housing costs are going up. Trump has betrayed us.
You can't expect me to be
do a different
silent
show for
when
Holocaust
someone
debate.
denies the Holocaust in front of the entire world. And let me just be clear.
I didn't deny the Holocaust. I'm just...
All right, welcome back to Raw Nation Report. Today we got another intense debate from Piers Morgan. This time it's centered around Nick Fuentes, his influence, and what's driving the reaction around him. Now, as always, we're not here to take sides or add fuel to anything. We are here to watch the exchange, examine the argument, and just let the conversation play out the way it was presented. Let's get into it.
Nick Fuentes is not MAGA. He's MAG-GIT. He trades in being a subhuman, mentally and conspiracy-minded, Neanderthal knuckle-dragger. He is utterly ignorant. He knows no history. And his MAGA is Make America German. Amen. He is just using a Hitlerian playbook. He says that Hitler is his hero. There's a lot of similarities, of course. You become famous by targeting Jews. He's not anti-Israel. He's an anti-Semite. He's a Holocaust denier. Hitler traded an anti-Semitism beginning in 1921-22 because it was the way to become the most famous. History has shown if you hate the Jews, Jews are news. So when you ask how did he become so famous, it is specifically his anti-Semitism. The question is he transactionally anti-Semitic or is he ideologically anti-Semitic? I think it's both. But the way he speaks about blacks, that blacks should all be returned to slavery, and that if you go to a black neighborhood, you're going to be stabbed in the neck, that they're all murderers. We've seen this, of course, with Hitler, who wouldn't even shake Jesse Owens' hands when Jesse Owens dominated the 1936 Olympics, winning 4 gold medals. And you know, but Fuentes is playing with fire because in the same way the Nazi movement cultivated hatred they could no longer contain, you have Tucker Carlson saying openly that Nick Fuentes is gay, which I couldn't care less. I have a gay brother. But Ernst Röhm, who was the head of the SA, was killed by Hitler in large part because he was gay. And at some point, Fuentes' followers are going to turn on him because just like Hitler didn't look Aryan in the slightest, neither does Fuentes. He's not this white Norwegian Aryan Ubermensch Superman. He's actually a short, weird guy, kind of like the way Hitler was. He has all these weird tics. He's famous because hatred sells.
I lost count, honestly. I mean, I lost count of how many lies that was just admitted. Where do we begin? Obviously, Rabbi Shmuley is part of the tone-deaf majority who are more than likely the cause of the rise of Nick Fuentes. When you start off the conversation with lobbying insults, first and foremost, and mentioning something about his height and his looks, you're completely neglecting the fact that at this point, and in my generation in particular, we see this as an emergency. We don't care about what he looks like. Mentioning that Hitler killed Strom because he was homosexual, which is not true. That's obviously a very complicated thing. Or the Jesse Owens statement, which, again, I believe Jesse Owens made a statement that Hitler actually called him to congratulate him, and the president of the U.S. at the time did not. So food for thought there. But this is a cheap tactic, and it's one that's been overly used over and over. And I really want to warn people like Rabbi Shmuley and anybody who uses this tactic, because ultimately, what you're doing, what you're forcing people to do, is to de-radicalize this movement, de-radicalize these words. When you lobby these words, anti-Semitism, and you say, well, you're not allowed at the table unless you're if you're an anti-Semite. Well, you're putting it on us to first de-radicalize what it means to be an anti-Semite so we get a spot at the table. Nick Fuentes is correcting an imbalance in the conservative movement that's been going on for 20 years, 20 plus years. He's pointing out the obvious flaws that we need to pay attention, to pull away from foreign influence and control to become a sovereign nation once again. He's never said anything about putting blacks back in chains. And, you know, if you're going to go off of clip editing and then sensationalism, obviously he's very sensational right now. you're being intellectually dishonest. You're being.
Well, let's play a clip.
All right, let me pause it right here. This is where the tone shifts from general opinion to specific evidence. Anytime a debate brings in a clip, the panel uses it as ammunition, either to reinforce a claim or to question the framing of that claim. What's interesting isn't the clip itself, but how differently each person interprets the same footage. This is where you start to see the ideological fault lines open up.
Let me play a clip of Fuentes, and we can discuss this after we've watched it.
What are all of these groups? Who are these people? What are they actually? The World Jewish Congress, the Jewish Leadership Conference, the Jewish Federations of North America. What are we to make of this? This is totally unique. There is no other group of people that does this. I'm Italian, Mexican, and Irish. Is there anything comparable for any of these groups? Is there a World Irish Congress chaired by billionaires and bankers?
That strikes me as pretty openly anti-Semitic, because of course there are plenty of groups around the world for all sorts of nationalities and religious and ethnic groups. Of course there are. We all know that. So the idea that somehow this is unique to Jewish people is preposterous. The guy is clearly anti-Semitic, isn't he? I mean, there's no even pretends to not be.
No, he's not. He's not. I'm gonna jump in again. I'm sorry, he's not. You're taking a clip out of context. Here's the thing.
What was the out of context?
Well, first and foremost, I'm saying you have to
Black's
really listen.
Hang on. Don't, Rabbi Shmuley, let me just handle this.
Rabbi Shmuley, you're
hang
the
on,
worst representative for
Richie
your
Black,
side.
I'm very curious.
They did a real disservice.
Hang on. When you say,
like
Richie Black, when you say we took it out of context, explain how that was taken. It seemed pretty straightforward context to me.
At this point, the entire discussion shifts from what was said and how it was said to whether the clip was represented in full context, whether the interpretation is fair, and whether the panel is selectively framing each other. This is common in modern political conflicts. Arguments don't just fight over few facts. They fight over framing, context, intentions, and motives. And that's why the conversation becomes so chaotic. Everyone is debating the different version of the same event.
I'll tell you why. Because, first of all, you're taking it out of context. Because you have to take in the full scope of everything Nick says, not only in one of his shows, but over the course of time. His fans, the people that are loyal to him, the people that are pushing for America first, these aren't people that just showed up yesterday. And this is where you really lose out. Your negligence to acknowledge the fact that his fans, his constituents, have been following him for 10 years.
What's that got to do with his anti-Semitism?
Hitler had followers. Mussolini had followers.
I'm curious. Jake, I will bring you in, and Ben, I will bring you in. But just, Richie, just to be clear, you said that clip was taken out of context. I can't understand how it was taken out of context. It was very straightforward. What was the out of context?
First and foremost, what I'm suggesting is what you're lobbying as anti-Semitism. You're suggesting that Nick hates all Jews? Is that what you're suggesting? What does it mean anymore to be anti-Semitic? Because
if you say you openly love
day,
Adolf Hitler, you probably don't care that he murdered millions of Jews.
I would definitely argue if your assumption is that somebody who has any adoration for Adolf Hitler is obviously anti-Semitic, then you yourself have not dived into history and or looked at the subjugation or the persecution of those.
I can't believe we're hearing this.
Of course you can't believe it, because this is a new age. America must rise to the occasion to address the issue of people like you.
All right, I'm going to leave it right there. This debate definitely went off the rails, but it shows how conversations about politics, identity, and influence can turn into something much bigger than the original topic. If you want more breakdowns and uncensored discussions like this, make sure you subscribe and tap that notification and drop your thoughts respectfully down in the comments. As always, thank you for watching Raw Nation Report. I will see you in the next one.